Hi, welcome everyone. I'm James Jones with Golden Senior Living Advisors, and I want to talk to you this week about fitness. How can seniors stay healthier, fitter, and stronger for longer into their lives? Golden Years Senior Living Advisors, I assist seniors when they need to find a retirement community. And this podcast is to empower seniors into a way where their golden years can be their best years. So, what I want to talk to you about today, we have a special guest on with us too, Jeff Whittle, is the activities of daily living as we get older can become challenging. My neighbor next door to me, Sal, he's 97 years old and he needed help today and he needed help moving something. Happy to help him. But how can seniors be a little bit more independent by maintaining their strength and fitness? As you may or may not know, two things that can afflict seniors as they get older are osteoporosis, and sarcopenia. What is the solution? How can somebody prevent those things from preventing them from living their full life and their best life into their golden years? Let me introduce to you Jeff Whittle, former radio personality turned senior fitness Sherpa. Jeff, so glad to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Can we start with your telling us your why? Why did you decide to make a shift in your career and help seniors stay fit and healthier longer?
Well, thank you for having me, James, and I'm very happy with the opportunity to talk to folks about fitness. It's my passion now. So, a lot of people say, how did you go from being in radio, a rock and roll DJ in my younger days, and then a newscaster, sports announcer in the later part of my 40-year radio career? Um, I when I turned 40, and I was still full-time in the radio, but a radio job, you sit a lot. So you're in a studio, sometimes really early in the morning. We'd go on the air at 5 a.m. I'd be in the studio at 3:30 a.m. So I go to bed, hopefully early enough, but, bad hours, not sleeping great. You tend to overeat. It really contributes to obesity. By the time I turned 40, I was 30 pounds overweight. And so my wife and I joined a gym, and they mentioned if I knew anything about training and exercising, and I didn't really know much about it. So they said, we recommend you get a personal trainer, because otherwise you'll just kind of look around the gym, see what other people are doing, trying to do some of that, mimicking them. You won't see many results and you'll quit. And that happens with a lot of people. So they go, at least, do a little bit with a personal trainer, even if you don't want to continue. That turned out to be a key moment in my life then, because we did it, loved my trainer. Turns out we had a lot in common. We were both from Iowa. We both graduated from the University of Iowa. He was a former NFL player, so he knew so much about fitness and training. So I started working with him, loved it, got in great shape. Long story short, he moved away after a few years. I stopped going to the gym as much, started eating badly again. I was still in the radio, gained all the weight back. I was flabby. I was weak because I wasn't, doing any exercise. Looked him up, started traveling to work with him again, got in the best shape of my life. And I said, this time I want to get certified as a trainer myself, so I have all this knowledge to keep myself fit and healthy and not just rely on somebody else. So I got certified in 2015. I trained part-time while I was still on the radio for about 5 years. When COVID hit, I lost my radio job. Radio, I hate to say, is getting really kind of hurt financially by the internet. The industry is in somewhat of a decline. So, I was making less money than I was. I decided, and we were moving back from Los Angeles to San Diego. And so I just didn't look for a radio job. My wife's like, if you want to start training full time, now's the time, because we're making a kind of a big life transition. So when we moved to San Diego almost exactly 3 years ago, I just started looking to train full time. So that's kind of how the transition happened. I still love music and radio, and I listen to it, and I go to a lot of concerts, but now I'm focused on fitness. I turned 64 this month. So, I'm right in there with the seniors that I train. I'm starting to feel the aches and pains. I know what some of the things they're going through in their life. So it's really become my passion. You asked about my why. My family from the Midwest. Health and fitness isn't a huge thing in the Midwest. We grew up on the farm, ate a lot of, meat and potatoes, certainly. So my mom, my sisters, even my dad, to some extent, have gotten heavy, lost their mobility, so they don't get around as much. I see how it's affected their life, not being able to do the things that they used to do. It's all kind of caught up with them in old age. When you're younger, you can get away with maybe being overweight and still moving about, but once you hit those golden years, really it takes a toll on your hips and your knees and all of that, and you can't get around nearly as much. And now you're forced to sit out a lot of activities that you were able to take part in. Loneliness hits with a lot of seniors that are homebound because of their mobility issues. So, and especially then the balance comes into play. You lose your balance, poor balance. So falls can be devastating. They're painful. You can get hurt. Of course, you can even die from falls. 32,000 Americans die every year from falls, but 2,300 in California in the last year. There were tallies from as of a couple of years ago. We actually have one of the lower fall rates per 100,000, but since we have such a big population, 3,200 Californians die of a fall every year, seniors. So just the fear of falling alone keeps a lot of people indoors, keeps them out of social settings. They don't go visit their friends and family nearly as much. They don't do the things that they like to do, go to a movie, even just go shopping. So it really has a devastating effect on your life. And finally, the big thing is I see with some targeted strength and balance training, a lot of this could be overcome. I see people, hobbling around, and it's like, we could make their lives a lot better and improve their quality of life quite a bit, just with some work. So seeing the people in these situations where maybe they don't have to be has really been a thing, with me, is like, we can help you, we really make a difference in your life. So I tried to address, some of those things. I'd love more questions from you.
Absolutely. So it sounds like your own personal life's journey has led you to make this your mission of health and fitness, specifically seniors, and you've seen it within yourself, getting heavier, not being as mobile or healthy, even your family. So fitness, of course, is incredibly important for somebody's health and well-being, especially for seniors. Can you talk to us a little bit about osteoporosis and sarcopenia and how being healthy in your golden years can prevent these things?
Certainly. So I specialize actually in training women in like their 60s and 70s and 80s. And I have some men even into their 80s as well, from their 60s to their 80s. But osteoporosis is probably the number one medical condition I hear about from the ladies I train. And postmenopausal, the hormonal changes, really their bodies, leach a lot of the chemicals, calcium out of their bones, so they become weaker. So they have a much greater risk of fractures. And of course, then when you fall, you add that fall risk. Falling, the bones are much more likely to break. They're more likely to shatter. So the injuries can be much higher if someone falls with osteoporosis. Men can have it, but it's much more prevalent in women. And I'll link these two together. And then sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss. So osteoporosis, basically age-related bone loss. sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. So you see folks, especially mid-70s and beyond, where maybe their arms and legs get pretty skinny. With women, it actually starts in our 30s, but it's a slow, gradual, and we have a lot of muscle to lose in our 30s and 40s and 50s before it starts to get noticeable and become a problem. But by the time we get into our 70s, usually mid-70s is kind of where I see the tipping point, where the loss of muscle mass has a exponential loss in strength. So maybe you've lost a quarter of your muscle, that could result in a 40 or 50% loss in strength. So it's very serious. That's basically the cause of frailty. People don't get frail just because they get old. They get frail because they have lost a lot of muscle. And now they are so weak that it makes them hard to walk. It affects their balance, of course, because their legs aren't strong enough to stabilize them. Their upper bodies aren't strong, so they can't carry groceries up the steps into the house. So frailty is really, the loss of muscle mass. The good thing is you can fix them both by doing the same thing, and that's strength training. And the term strength training scares a lot of seniors. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to lift all these heavy weights, and I'm going to have to go to a gym and, bench press all of this weight and things like that. It's like, no. Cute story. My mom, she was in her mid-70s probably at that time. She's in her 80s now, and I wanted to train her for some strength. And she's like, well, I don't want to get all big and muscular and bulky and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she's my mom, and she's 75. And I'm like, Mom, that's not going to happen. But if your muscles get too big, we'll just stop training. Okay. If that becomes a problem. Of course it's not. And she now laughs when she thinks about telling me that at the time, because she realizes we're just trying to slow the decline, the loss of muscle, maybe halt it, possibly reverse it and start building some of that muscle mass back, or make the muscle, at least that we have, much stronger. So strength training doesn't have to be lifting heavy weights. It can be using some elastic bands that have give and resistance. It can be body weight. It can be doing push-ups off of the counter, so you're only leaned at somewhat of an angle, like this, and your hands are on the edge of the counter and you're just coming down and up a little bit. You don't have to think heavy weights. Yes, I have 1 pound dumbbells that I use with some clients because that's where they're at, and we're trying to get them a little stronger, and hopefully in a few months or however long we'll get to 2 pound dumbbells, and maybe then to 3 pounders. But it's not like, okay, here's some 15, 25 pound things, and we need to do bicep curls and overhead presses. So when we talk about strength training or resistance training, body weight counts, resistance bands that are very forgiving. You only pull them back as far as you can, and then we let go. Or it can be weights as well. But it strengthens the bones as well as the muscles. So the bones respond to the stress of strength training just like the muscles do. So resistance training is perfect for older women to fight osteoporosis, and it also helps fight sarcopenia at the same time. So it's really important. Plus, it boosts your metabolism. You burn more calories. It helps you lose weight. Some people are what they call skinny fat. The arms are really thin. The legs are really thin. They may have a little tummy, around that. So it's like we're trying to change the composition and the distribution, of what's on your body. Put a little more in the arms and legs, take a little off the waist, make a big difference.
Wow. Sounds like there's so many benefits. Now, what is your process when you have a new client? Where do you start with them? And then which muscle groups and exercises are the most important for seniors?
Perfect question, James. Exactly. So, we do a consultation and find out about their goals. And one of the biggest things I hear about is balance and osteoporosis. Now, if osteoporosis isn't an issue, because balance is an issue with almost everyone, we want to start with improving the balance, because that's a safety, life or death issue. So getting them stable on their feet so they don't fall, break a hip, 800,000 broken hips in seniors a year from falls.
Wow.
and a third of them will be dead in less than a year, even if the fall doesn't kill them. Just the shock to the system, the surgery to maybe help them, it just starts a really serious downward spiral. So the number one priority is always balance. Get them stable on their feet. Get that foundation. You don't build the walls and the roof of a house first. You build the foundation first, and this is a safety issue. So unless they're really solid on their feet and they come to me for osteoporosis, or the doctor sent them to me because of, that they have diabetes and they want to take care of that. So then burning calories and revving their metabolism becomes, but with usually it's going to be working on the balance and then working on the osteoporosis and things once we get them stable on their feet, or at the same time. But for balance, I have like leg strengthening and then coordination, leg and foot coordination drills. So those are the two things we work on together. So if the legs are really weak, of course, that's a fall hazard. Sometimes the legs are fairly strong, but they're not very coordinated. They don't walk very well. They don't step very well. So I do a lot of, footwork, stepping and coordination types of drills. So we may do grapevines where we're crossing the leg, walking sideways with the feet crossing over the front or even around the back of each other, heel to toe walks, things like that, standing. So I kind of break down the balance exercises into standing. So we can do one leg stand, which is pretty hard, and most people have trouble with that. We can start with a 2-leg stand, or even a tandem where the feet are close to each other, heel to kind of toe beside each other. So it's a little more support. It's a little wider base of support than a heel to toe, and certainly a more support than just the 1-leg stand. But we need to find where they can start pretty safely. And they're always next to something that they can hold on to, or maybe even they are holding on, and just getting the leg strength kind of up. A lot of the stepping exercises done, if it's in their home, a narrow hallway so they can hold on to both sides, not in the middle of an open room where there's nothing to catch them if they lose their balance. So I'm always thinking about, okay, you need something to hold on to. Where are we going to be? Are we going to be next to a kitchen counter? We're going to be in the narrow hallway. If we're working in the gym, I'm making sure there's a bar in front of them that they can hold on to. Sometimes they're only holding on with one finger just for the feel. But if they feel themselves starting to go, then they can grab on with both hands and they're safe. And I'm behind them with my arms wrapped around them, like behind them like this to catch them in case they would kind of stumble or fall as well. So I'm like a mother hen, just helicopter trainer, behind there for safety until they get stable on their feet. You mentioned muscle groups. So, of course, the thighs, we call them the quadriceps because it's actually 4 muscles there in the front side of the thigh bone. The back side of the thigh is what we call the hamstrings. There's 3 muscles back there. So the upper leg is hugely important. Lower leg, important as well. Special ankle mobility, being able to move that ankle around, absorb like uneven surfaces and things like that. It's like the shock absorbers on your car. So ankle stiffness is a huge risk factor for falls. So even if people are sitting down on the sofa with their heels on the floor and they're doing like pumping their ankles like you're stepping on the gas of a car and backing off, or ankle circles, that goes a long way. And you can do it sitting down in a chair. And then, like I mentioned, the upper leg, the lower leg, the calf muscles. So standing and doing heel and toe raises, alternating while holding on to something to strengthen the lower leg. And then the glutes, the butt muscles, because those are important for walking and propulsion. The glute maximus, it's the largest muscle in the body, biggest mass volume, and that's what helps propel you forward when walking. So the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes are really the most important, along with the lower leg muscles. So those are really what I try to strengthen. And then the core is huge in balance as well, because it links the top, upper, and bottom half of your body. And if you kind of start swaying or something like that, a strong core can kind of bring you together and keep you from just kind of flopping over to the side. So we kind of work lower and then work our way up. And then with osteoporosis, we do want to do some arm things and overhead if the shoulders will allow. A lot of older folks have creaky shoulders. They can come to about level or so horizontal, but anything above that starts to hurt. So, we might, it's tough to get a cup out of the cupboard in the kitchen, get dinner plates, so you may want to have things low, but we can maybe just do some gentle things, even without weights, mobility, just to get those shoulders loosened up and, use it or lose it. So, we work on the upper body, especially if there's osteoporosis then as well. So those are kind of the strategies and the way we work in order with up the body with somebody. Now, maybe somebody comes to me with something specific, they've been in a car accident or they've fallen and they've hurt their shoulder. And so we're doing that more than we're focusing on the other things. But the average person, it's going to be balance, so strengthening the legs and the foot coordination drills and the balance drills and then the osteoporosis.
Okay. Well, thank you. Very informative. What kinds of challenges or hurdles might a senior face when starting a new regimen of fitness? And do you ever have any resistance from them, even though they know this is good for them? Maybe they're resistant, and how do you overcome that?
Sure. So a lot of them fear, they're afraid of getting hurt while training. That's one of the biggest things. They're like, yeah, I want to get stronger, but I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt, whether it's falling or whether they're going to pull a muscle or something like that. They'll do a few basic things, but they don't want to graduate to something maybe a little more challenging, which will take them to the next level of strength and balance because they're afraid they can't do it and they're going to fall. So a lot of times I will want them to do maybe something a little more challenging or a little more vigorous, and they don't want to do it because they don't think they can. And then the nice thing is when maybe I convince them, it's like, okay, you were able to do this and you're able to do this and you're able to do this. You should be able to do this with no problem. I wouldn't ask you to do it if I didn't think you could do it. I'm never like throw caution to the wind and say, let's see if you can do this. It's like, I've seen all the signs. I know they can. They don't think they can. That's a big hurdle. But once they can do it, they're like, wow, I never thought I could do that. I could step up and step down on these stairs that we do. So we'll do a lot of stepping up and stepping down, simulating going up and down stairs. It's like, you need to go up and down stairs a lot, maybe even in your house. We need to get good at that and strong at that. I've had people tell me they go down the stairs sideways, holding on to the railing, or even backwards, because going downstairs head first, walking downstairs is the hardest. And it's usually because the thighs aren't strong enough, and you have to put all your weight on one leg while you're lowering the other foot down to the next lower step. And if that leg isn't strong enough, they're tumbling head first, and that is tragedy. But it's a big thing, and they know it. They're like, I'm afraid to go downstairs face first, so they go down sideways holding on to the railing, or I mentioned even backwards, and they tell me that. They're like, I go down the stairs backwards because I know I'll fall if I try to go down head first. So it's like, well, then we need to work on that in a controlled setting when you're holding on to something and practice that, just so it's safe for you to go up and down stairs, to get into your house, to go up to the second floor, to step in and out of a car, whatever, up and into the bus or whatever. So other resistance is just trying to get them to exercise in the first place. They know they should, or their kids, their adult children are like, Mom, Dad, you need to do something and not just sit on the sofa. You want to come and see the grandkids. And being afraid of falling, they're more likely to sit on the sofa and stay indoors, which only makes them weaker because they're not getting any movement and exercise. So it's a downward spiral when they're afraid to get off the sofa and won't do anything about it. that's usually a one-way street, weaker, to getting weaker and even less mobile, and probably moving into a nursing home pretty quickly, I would think, from what I've seen. So the resistance is starting, and then the resistance being afraid of getting injured, of doing maybe enough. And I hear people, well, I walk around the block every day, or I walk every day. It's usually not enough. We're not doing enough stepping. Sometimes people are barely lifting their feet when they walk. There's the shuffle, the slipper shuffle, they call it for older folks. They just kind of shuffle their feet along the floor. Of course, that's a big trip hazard, because even the end of the carpet will tip if they're not picking up the feet and putting them down. Any little thing, a crack in the sidewalk can trip them. The rug, variations between the rug and the hardwood floor or whatever, can trip them. So walking alone usually is not enough. It's better than nothing, but it's really not enough to work on your balance and make your legs stronger.
Wow. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your senior fitness certification?
Sure. So, like doctors and nurses and a lot of other people, we need to get continuing education units, or continuing education credits, to renew my license, my regular personal training certification every 2 years. I have to take like 2 additional courses. So the very first one I ever took, since I wanted to work with seniors, was senior fitness specialist. So they talk about specific problems that you're likely to encounter and ways to work with them. Now, for folks with osteoporosis, there's some things that's recommended that you don't do, contraindicated in the parlance of doctors. So if they have like osteoporosis of the spine, we try not to do a lot of rotational things where maybe we could crumble some of those vertebrae and things like that. Excuse me. You learn just a lot of things you should do and not do with a senior, when you're training with them. And of course, as there's new research, that can change some of the things I originally, learned about, that now they're saying, well, maybe it is okay. Try not to do like eccentric training, slow decline, like on a bicep curl, where you curl your arm and I'm trying to get into the camera. So concentric contraction is where you shorten the muscle and try to do that. Eccentric is where you go back down and you lengthen it out. Well, it's a harder contraction, actually. That's the effect that your leg does when you're going downstairs. But it can be a lot of soreness and things like that. So it works the muscle a lot harder. They would say, well, don't do that with seniors. Now, if you do it under control, it's actually a better way of training. So slow motion, like slow up, slow down, is becoming very popular. They found that there's a lot of benefits, health benefits, to doing it that way. So I'm trying to think of some other stuff, but a lot of things are dealing with osteoporosis, being careful with that, especially the rotational with the spine. We try to do just, front and back or side to side, but not twisting motions, things like that. Another thing then is like static holds, where you're holding on to something or you're holding a position and not doing a lot of movement. So that's a safe way to get the muscles stronger without a lot of movement.
Okay. Tell us some of your success stories. I'm sure people are really curious to know about that.
So I have video footage. I like to take some with folks when they first come in and start training with me, of stepping exercises and some of the footwork things. They're holding on to the wall or to a bar, something like that. And then a few months later, we see the same footage, or I tape them doing the same thing and compare it. And they're not holding on. They're moving great. They feel, safe doing all of this stuff without holding on anymore. I have several, comparison videos of the before and after, which is great. I have a lady that I train, somebody that I know, a mutual friend, told her about me because she has issue with her legs and feet. So she has braces on both of her lower legs and ankles, and she was falling a lot. So her friend told her she needed to check me out, and that's exactly what I specialize in, is balance and things like that. She has seen, and there's before and after video, and I even showed it to some doctors. I was doing a presentation to some medical providers, and they were like, wow, that is night and day improvement in
Wow.
her walking and stepping.
Nice.
So that is great. I've had people that have had, one lady I train, she had vertigo really bad. She would have to do her Epley exercises, the Epley maneuver, like on herself, before she could get in the car and drive to the grocery store. And sometimes she'd have to do 2 rounds of these to try to get the inner ear situated again, so she didn't have this dizziness. She never has to do those anymore. It's completely cured the vertigo because of the different balance and exercises that we've done. I've had people that used to have migraines pretty frequently, multiple times a week. They never have a migraine again. Now, I don't promise those results, but people have found those types of results. So those are some of the best things. I've had people say that, certainly their numbers for their A1C has gone down because we're exercising, and the metabolism has improved. So even more than just weight loss. I don't specialize in weight loss, but I do have a weight management certification as well. So I will certainly do nutrition coaching with my clients and try to get them to eat healthier and answer any questions they have about diet. So between losing weight and exercising has really helped folks with diabetes, has been able to get them off of diabetes medication, or they were pre-diabetic and they've moved out of the pre-diabetic and they're no longer in jeopardy of being prescribed diabetes medications, because usually the fewer medications we can be on, the better. I've had people say that they've reversed their osteoporosis. Maybe they had osteopenia, which is kind of the pre-osteoporosis. They've gone back and had another DEXA scan the next year, and the doctor's like, your osteoporosis has gotten better, your bone density has improved. We're doing the weight training, the bones respond to that. They feel that they're strained, they're lifting heavy weights, they actually make themselves stronger, just like our muscles do, which helps sarcopenia. Or if we're just a young person, we get bigger muscles, obviously, by bodybuilding. Well, it works even to a smaller extent for seniors, and it works for our bones as well. So those are some of the things I'm really, happy to report that my clients have told me about.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of positive effects. If somebody was listening today and really was interested, how would they get started with you, and what should they expect?
Okay. So I train clients on Zoom, so they don't have to be here in San Diego. I have a person I even train in Europe twice a week. Um, I have a PDF called 12 balance exercises that could save your life, because as I've mentioned, 32,000 people a year die from falls in the United States, seniors. So that's how they could save your life. It's free. If they just want to send me an email or something, I will send that to them. My email is just info@silverstrong.fitness. So there's now a .fitness instead of a .com or a .org or a .edu or anything like that. So info@silverstrong.fitness. My website is just www.silverstrong.fitness. They can reach out and call me from there. So either of those, I train in person here in San Diego, but like I said, I train on Zoom around the U.S., a few people scattered across the U.S. Some of my old clients in Los Angeles who I trained in person now train with me on Zoom so we can continue to working together even though we're 100 miles apart now. So that's a good way. We can talk about, maybe a group class or something or one-on-one training. The sessions are usually an hour. I do train a couple of people for a half hour just because of their physical condition. Because of medical issues, they're not up. They can't train for a full hour. Half hour is about all their body can take, but they know it's way better to do that a couple of times a week than not do it. And I love to accommodate folks. I want to be of service to people that need me. So those are, and of course they can just reach out. I can answer questions about stuff we've talked about today, even if they don't necessarily, want to train, or at least not right now. So, I can be a resource, be willing to give out information, and we can discuss, the options that if they actually did want to train with me, or if there's adult children and they're concerned about their parents, they can certainly reach out and we can talk, and then we can do a conference with the elderly parent as well and see if maybe it's something they might be willing to do. Usually the kids are like, oh, my parents need you so bad, but I just can't get them to do it. They're not interested. And it's like, it has to be, they have to want to. I get a few people that come to me because the doctor told them or their spouse nagged them to do it, going, oh, you need to go see Jeff. They're usually looking to drop out as soon as they can. They're only doing it for somebody else. That extrinsic motivation doesn't stick very well. I want people, it's better, obviously more success, more adherence with people that want to do it for themselves, not because somebody else guilted them into doing it or the doctor told, yeah, I'm here because my doctor told me I needed to lose weight type of things. But, hey, if they're willing, even maybe if they want to stick with it, that would be great. Even if they're not that happy about doing it, they're like, yeah, I know this is good for me. And sometimes people start and they're like, yeah, I'm here because I know I need to, but I really don't want to. But after a little while and they see improvement and they start feeling better, they become converted over time as well if they stick with it. And they're like, okay, I see the benefit now. I wasn't convinced at the beginning, but I am now. So any of those people, I'd love to at least chat with them.
Wow, excellent. Jeff, you're really doing a great service to people, and you're helping people and keeping them healthy and preventing them from falling and enjoying their lives to a better degree. It's fantastic what you're up to. If anyone's watching and you yourself feel called to reach out to Jeff and start a fitness program, please do. Or if you have a loved one who you think might benefit from starting a fitness program with Jeff here at Silver Strong Fitness, please reach out to him. And thank you so much, Jeff, for being on this program and for being so informative, rather, and for just really just being passionate about helping other people stay fit and healthy.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, James, and you asked some wonderful questions, and you're doing a great service to this population as well by having this podcast and having folks like me on that just help spread the word.
Thank you. Well, enjoy your day, and everyone is well. Thanks for listening and watching, and thanks, and we'll see you next time.